As elsewhere, the Yugoslav partisans are a loose alliance of communists, nationalists, unaligned resistance, and anti-fascists, forming a huge, powerful army hidden in the mountains. Their leader, Josip Broz, known as Tito, is General Secretary of the Communist Party and has spent the past 20 years in clandestinity. Of working-class origin and part Croat, part Slovene, Tito has formed a National Liberation Council with representatives from every region. His ambition, once the war is over, is to create a federal state that will place Yugoslavia's disparate peoples on an equal footing and allow them to maintain their identities. War comes to an end. King Peter abdicates. Tito's vision prevails, and on November 29, 1945, he becomes the first president of the Republic of Yugoslavia. The state's slogan is Brotherhood, Unity. Reconstruction begins. The settling of accounts, too. Fascists and collaborators are shot. 100,000 Ustashis are executed, but Chetniks die too. Brotherhood and unity in communism is the order of the day. Serbs, Slovenes, and Croats fade into the background. Communists come first, 23 of them in a government of 28 ministers. In 1948, Tito, the only Eastern Bloc leader who owes none of his power to Moscow, breaks with Stalin. A propaganda film shows the leader making his crucial decision. The man of Providence.
More krvi prolili za bratstvo i jedinstvo naših naroda. I nećemo nikome dozvoliti da nam dira ili da nam ruje iznutra da se ruši to bratstvo i jedinstvo. Nijedna naša republika ne bi bila niko i ništa da nismo svi zajedno. A mi moramo stvarati svoju istoriju. Svoju jugoslavensku socijalističku istoriju jedinstvenu.
Cast aside by Stalin, and despite a later rapprochement with Khrushchev, Tito opts for a third way, which he propagates through the non-aligned movement. His greatest innovation, and one which appealed strongly to Western socialists, was workers' self-management. The years passed, but neither Tito's personality nor the veneer of communism, not even trial and imprisonment of its leaders, was able to stem the nationalist advance. In 1974, under popular pressure, Tito amended the Constitution to give greater autonomy to local leaders. In 1980, Tito died at Ljubljana. Like that of his former adversary, Alexander I, Tito's body traveled by train to Belgrade. Crowds thronged by the side of the track to see him pass. Indira Gandhi. Leonid Brezhnev. Margaret Thatcher. Nicolae Ceausescu. Sandro Pertini. Willy Brandt. The emotion is unfeigned. Behind them, a huge crowd is also riven with emotion. They know that the dream is ending and that they must wake to economic crisis, sectorial disputes, and ethnic rivalry. Tito left behind him a country of great complexity, a mosaic of peoples scattered among 6 republics. Each republic had its own local government with a president, and the 6 presidents formed a collective federal presidency, each president in turn serving as head of the Yugoslav state for a year. There were significant differences and inequalities among the republics. Slovenia was well off and relatively homogeneous, with a population 90% Slovene. Serbia comprised 66% Serbs, 20% Albanians, and the 2 autonomous provinces. Vojvodina, in the north, had 56% Serbs, 22% Hungarians, and 7% Croats. And Kosovo, in the south, was home to an 85% population of Albanians with only 10% of Serbs. Kosovo was nevertheless the Serbs' ancestral homeland. In Macedonia, 67% of the population was Macedonian, 20% Albanian. In Montenegro, the proportions were 70% Montenegrin, 6% Albanian, and 13% non-Albanian Muslim. Bosnia-Herzegovina was a particularly even spread, with 33% Serbs, 40% Muslims, and 20% Croats. In Croatia, the Catholic Croats formed a clear majority with 75%, with a 12% minority of Serbs. It was here, in Kosovo, only a few months after the death of Tito, that the first disturbances arose. On April 1st, 1981, a Serbian Orthodox church is set on fire, sparking a wave of demonstrations and riots. The Albanians demand that their province be upgraded to republic status. Their main grievance is high unemployment. More than half of the Albanian population is under 20, and half of the working age population is out of work. A dozen people are killed in the ensuing clampdown. Franjo Tuđman, age 58 at the death of Tito, a Croat and wartime companion of Tito who rose to the rank of general. Twice tried and imprisoned for his nationalist convictions, leader of one of Croatia's nationalist parties. Slobodan Milosevic, 40 at the time of Tito's death, a Serb, rose through the ranks of the Serbian Communist Party. Milan Kucan, a Slovene who also owes his position to his party career. All 3 are to play a major role in the Yugoslav crisis prior to the outbreak of war on June 27, 1991. In Slovenia, by the mid-1980s, the party youth publication Mladina had become a stronghold of pacifist, anti-communist, and ecologist writers, formulating progressive ideas at variance with the ossified conventions of communist society. Their views rapidly reach out to the rest of society, and their influence is widely felt. 4 journalists are arrested and accused of betraying military secrets. On May 24, 1987, Milosevic attends a meeting in Kosovo with Azem Vlasi, the ethnic Albanian local Communist Party chief. For the past 6 months, the Albanian population have been demonstrating for Republican status. Disturbances and rumors have fueled panic and flight among the Serb minority. Milosevic, president of the Serbian Communist Party, has mounted a campaign against the party's old-style leaders and their bureaucratic procedures. He pledges to solve the problems of the Serbs in Kosovo in 2 months.
Ja sam se rukovao, sa vama nisu mi dali poziv. Ajte sa nama. Molim, sa vama da vam kažem sve istinu. Svi toga borca gurali, tukli, bili žene, decu. Ne piti se ulica, između nama baca Kameniću, a mi tučeni bili. Druže predsjedniče. Dosta. Treće što vam predlažem, sami održavajte red, nije potrebno da milicija održava red. Predsjedniče! Drugovi! Samo da kažem ja! A gdje ćeš ti, bre? Predsjedniče! Mi vas poštujemo kao predsjednika, dogovorili smo se da se vidimo danas, vi ste sami rekli. Vi kao predsjednik, kako možete da dozvolite da se diže palica na ovaj narod? Mi, dozvolite, molim vas, dozvolite samo da vam kažem. Mi ne palimo, ne lomimo, ne vrištimo, ništa ne radimo, stojimo i čekamo dalje upućenje šta ćemo i kako ćemo da čujemo, da znamo.
The Serbs once again claim that the Albanians have been committing rapes, desecrating Orthodox cemeteries, sabotaging crops. Rumors? Facts? No one knows for sure. But feelings are running high among the Serbs of Kosovo. Incidents and demonstrations continue in the following months, here in Kosovo, but spreading also to Vojvodina, where local leaders demand greater autonomy and accuse Milosevic of acting like an imperialist. Milosevic's supporters take to the streets.
Hoćemo da idemo do Novoga Sada da vidimo šta misle ovi drugovi funkcioneri. Da li hoće da bude jedinstvena Jugoslavija ili neće? Ili ćemo da je cepamo ili nećemo? Pa smo došli da vidimo sa njima, da porazgovaramo malo u Novi Sad.
Milosevic has supporters in Vojvodina and also in Montenegro, where they take up his slogans.
Izašao sam sa ovom slikom u rukama da jasno pokažem svima. Mi, radnici, se nismo krili za razliku od pojedinih drugova iza zidine, iza prozora. Nama danas ovdje govore da čekamo. Sada čekamo, čekali smo godinama. Od 81. godine čekamo smirenje na Kosovu. Ako su gluvi i ako ne žele da čuju, mi ćemo čekati sve do njihovih ostavki.
Se večeras održati sjednica predsjedničkog Srpskog komiteta i da ću ja, iako nisam lopov, iako nisam izdajnik, iako sam radio po svijesti i savjesti, podnijeti ostavku. Prema tome, nemate potrebe da čekate na te ostavke.
It's 1988. And here, as elsewhere in Eastern Europe, popular pressure is sweeping away many of the local leaders. In Belgrade, a plenum of the Party Central Committee opens amid growing tension. Milosevic is arguing that Kosovo and Vojvodina must be placed under central Serbian administration. But his populist methods are giving rise to objections. Azem Vlasi, Albanian communist leader.
S obzirom na ciljeve i neki već poznati organizatora i manipulanata, pojava manipulacija od strane srpskih nacionalista i efekte koje imaju u političkoj javnosti, to nisu ni skupovi zajedništva i kao takvi objektivno štetni.
Pressure from Serb demonstrators leads to the replacement of local leaders in Vojvodina and Montenegro, while at the federal party level, Milosevic gains an advantage by means of manipulating a vote.
A druže Slobodane, to što si ti predložio, razmislite dobro. Razmislite dobro kojim ćete putom ići. Imate potporu i ti lično. Ali posljedice takvog čina mogu biti u krajnjoj konsekvenciji negativne ne samo za ovaj forum, nego i za Savez komunista Jugoslavije, za vas, drugove iz Srbije i tebe, druže Slobodane.
Belgrade, November 19th. 1.5 million demonstrators turned out for the biggest meeting ever seen here. This was the high point in a series of demonstrations held throughout the country for 4 months. The Serbs demanded Serbian control over the Albanians.
Pobedit ćemo, dakle, bez obzira što se i danas kao nekad protiv Srbije udružuju njeni neprijatelji van zemlje sa onima u zemlji. Njima poručujemo da uopšte nismo plašljivi, da u svaku bitku ulazimo. Da u svaku bitku ulazimo sa namerom da je dobijemo.
Milosevic, now 47, appears to be the strongman that Yugoslavia has lacked since the death of Tito. In Kosovo, within hours, and despite the cold and the snow, the Albanians react and begin to demonstrate.
Najveća podrška za to jeste ako ostanete ovako ujedinjeni, bratimljeni iz redova sviju naroda i narodnosti, a nama je posebna podrška ako to zajedništvo vidimo kod omladine i kod inteligencije.
Albanian leader Azim Vlasi is expelled from the Communist Party and arrested soon afterwards. In February 1989, also in Kosovo, 1,300 miners stage a sit-in at the coalface, 3,000 feet below the surface, demanding the resignation of the political leaders who they say are selling out the cause of the Albanians.
Konkretno tražim, neću mnogo da se državamo, mi tražimo ostavke naša predsjednik pokrajinskog komiteta druga Ramon Morinu, koji radnička klasa nema povjerenja na njega. I ne može on da živi između nas. Koji je malo pre bio gore i dao nam obećanje i nije ispunio to. I mi nismo izabrali. Ne znam ko je izabrali. To može samo gospodin Milošević da izabrali.
Tako će silom da vas izvadi drugi.
To može, to samo mrtvi može da izađemo to. Dok ne daju ovi drugovi ostavke, 1500 rudari ovdje smo, svi hoćemo da crkvimo ovdje.
Za ovo dana, već danas 4. dan kako smo u ovoj dubini zemlji, nikakvog kontakta sa familijom, niti ne znamo za njih, niti oni za mene ne znaju.
Up on the surface, the families are getting worried.
Šta deca ke na to hejburi? As min çu mi kalon, as kalon I dorë, as kalon sen djetë Allahit s'kam, heq, as kam dru, as kam mil, as kam kryp me gjys kam, heq, kam, në përkoj shifë dalë për marrë mil, sen djetë vëti s'm kalon, heq, ta, kur gjan, heq, që, një shkej nësën shkëll, dovë desh, pa rëga së don, sen djetë Allahit, tjetër s'kam gjon djetë Allahit, heq, qështu.
More than 600 miners suffer physical and psychological trauma and have to be given treatment in makeshift dispensaries set up in the mine. 30 of them are in serious condition and have to be taken to hospital. The sit-in is proving very hard on them. Finally, after 8 days, they emerge blinking to the surface, ill and deceived. Promises were made and will be broken. Meanwhile, in Slovenia, public opinion is hardening around the case of the Mladina journalists facing trial for publishing military secrets. Demonstrations are organized, each serving to spread democratic, pro-independent, dissenting views. Support is expressed for the cause of the Albanians in Kosovo. Milan Kucan has become president of the Slovenian Communist Party.
Konec koncev se mi v Jugoslaviji nismo združili zaradi skupne zgodovine in zaradi etnične sorodnosti, kar seveda so vse elementi, tudi integracijski danes, ampak zaradi uspešnega projekta boljšega skupnega življenja. Če tega projekta ne bo, potem nobena sila Jugoslavije integrirati ne more. Ne partija, ne revolucija, ne skupna zgodovina, ne del skupne kulture, ne etnična sorodnost, ne vojska in ne policija.
The Serbs see Slovenia's support for the Albanians of Kosovo as a betrayal.
Svjedoci smo veleizdaje Jugoslavije. Veleizdaja traje dugo i moramo staviti tačku. Ovaj miting nije anti-slovenački, anti-hrvatski, nego protiv njihovih vođa koji nisu to zaslužili. Treba da ih je sramota da su juče govorili jugoslovenskoj javnosti iz Sankarevog doma.
Dosta nam je priče, zaključaka, dosta nam je konferencija. Zna se kako se postupa sa neprijateljima, mafijom i izdajnicima.
Milosevic, that same evening at Belgrade. Fraternity and unity go out the window. It's always the others who are nationalist.
Drugarice i drugovi, nema te cene i nema te sile koja može pokolebati rukovodstvo Srbije i građane Srbije u borbi za pravedne ciljeve. Ne čujem dobro, ali želim da vam odgovorim na ovo što tražite. Uskoro će biti objavljena sva imena. I želim da vam kažem da će oni koji su se poslužili ljudima da manipulišu radi ostvarenja političkih ciljeva protiv Jugoslavije biti kažnjeni i biti uhapšeni.
In Kosovo, a state of emergency is declared. Occupying forces carry out arrests, repression, and manipulation. Observe this scene closely in the Kosovo Parliament on March 23, 1989. Parliament is to vote on the Milosevic proposals, the revision of the Constitution, and a strengthening of Serbian control. 167 votes for, and 10 against. Only 10 who look as if they don't know what's happening. And with good reason. Numerous deputies have been threatened and are not present. Others who are not deputies, like this man, have taken their place. His name is Ajeti. He is the brother of a leader who supports the authorities. This parliamentary sleight of hand causes a public outcry. Special troops and Federal Army forces are called in. This man, a soldier, refuses to obey.
Demokracija za celu Jugoslaviju! Demokracija! Demokracija! Povraća onaj beli, muka mu nešto. Pa orli kao dosta. Dobro je vam si, vrlo dobro! Povrati nazad, molim vas, kad gađajte umjesto! Gdje je onaj, drži.
Slovenian television broadcasts sequences against the repression in Kosovo. Four months later, Milosevic is elected president of the Republic of Serbia, despite the opposition of Serbia's new democratic parties. Serbia then sets up an economic embargo against Slovenia. In protest, on January 20th, 1990, at the 14th Congress of the Federal Communist Party, the Slovenian delegation walks out of the hall. This act, though it achieves its effect differently from the other countries of Eastern Europe, marks the end of Communist Party unity. This is the way, here, as you see it, that the Yugoslav Communist Party dies. A few days later, the Slovenian government withdraws its police units from Kosovo. In Belgrade, during the night of January 31st, the federal presidency holds an emergency meeting. 4 of the 6 republics vote against a military intervention in Kosovo. Serbia is supported only by Montenegro. In Kosovo, on March 22nd, there is a strange case of poisoning. More than 400 Albanian school children complain of nausea and breathing problems. They are rushed to hospital. Panic spreads as rumors abound and spreads across the province. But the Serbian doctors find nothing amiss and declare most strange this collective poisoning that just happens to break out in those towns where Albanian nationalism is strongest. April 1990. Slovenia, rising from a deep sleep, awakes to democracy. Slovenians set out to vote freely for the first time and find they have a choice of parties. Franz Buchar, candidate of the center-right opposition party, he becomes a parliamentary speaker, a man of the right. And a communist, Milan Kucan, becomes president of the Republic of Slovenia. National reconciliation is the order of the day. The Milosevic plan for a more centralized Yugoslav state is rejected. Kuchan's winning design for Slovenia is for a confederal system opening on to Europe.
Geslo Evropa zdaj, Evropa jutri, za nas mobilizacijsko geslo, da strnemo vse naše napore za reformiranje teh področij našega življenja, ki jih preprosto je mogoče osredotočiti v formulo radikalne gospodarske, socialne in politične reforme. Te reforme potrebuje tudi Jugoslavija. Če bo Jugoslavija šla v to isto smer, potem ni razloga, da bi Slovenija šla v Evropo brez Jugoslavije. Če Jugoslavija to ne bo želela, potem bo pač Slovenija morala iskati možnosti in poti, da pride v Evropo sama.
In Croatia, meanwhile, the key words of sovereignty, independence, and confederation have also come into their own in that republic's first free elections. Franjo Tuđman, Tito's former general, twice sentenced for nationalism, revives the old dream of a Croatian state.
Pobornici hegemonističko-unitarističkih ili jugoslavensko-velikodržavnih shvaćanja vide u programskim ciljevima HDZ ništa drugo do zahtjeve za obnovom ustaške NDH. Pritom zaboravljaju da NDH nije bila samo puka kvislinška tvorba i fašistički zločin, već i izraz kako povijesnih težnji hrvatskog naroda za svojom samostalnom državom, tako i spoznaja međunarodnih čimbenika, u ovom slučaju vlade Hitlerove Njemačke, koja je na ruševinama Versajskoga krojila novi evropski poredak, tih težnji Hrvatske i njenih geografskih granica.
April 22nd, election night. 50 years of communist rule are brought to an end by Croat nationalism. Franjo Tuđman is elected president of the republic. And Stipe Mesic, jurist and deputy, like Tuđman imprisoned for nationalism, becomes prime minister with the task of drawing up the constitution of a sovereign Croat state.
Pa gledajte, Srbija je od svoje 8. sjednice Saveza komunista Srbije, pa poslije Miloševićevog govora na Kosovu, inaugurirala jednu politiku koja u stvari išla na rušenje Jugoslavenske federacije i na uspostavu dominacije Srbije. Ali sve druge su optuživali da ruše Jugoslaviju. Naime, mi smo imali model federacije s kojim nitko nije zadovoljan. I sad nudimo jedan konfederativni model koji je sličan modelu Evropske zajednice. I ako su evropske nacije, evropske države s tim modelom zadovoljne i vide mogućnost progresa svojih društava i svojih država, nema nikakvog razloga da mi ne prihvatimo taj model i s tim modelom uđemo u Evropsku zajednicu.
May 13th, 1990. The Zagreb-Belgrade football match is interrupted by violent fighting. Events have been speeding up. Slovenia is preparing for independence. In Serbia, the democratic opposition is fighting for free elections. Milosevic is now talking about changing the frontiers. The Serbian parliament dissolves the parliament of Kosovo. The federal presidency is powerless. In Croatia, in the region of Knin, tension is mounting among the mainly Serb population. Roads and access routes are cut off. The Serbs of Croatia dread a return of the Ustashi horrors. But election fever spreads, and here too the vote is for autonomy, for an independent Serb enclave within Croatia.
Potrebna nam je zato, jer gospodin Tuđman je osnova ustašku vladu. Oko njega su u Saboru sve ustaše. I mi to ne možemo podnositi. Ovdje kad pogledamo, Da li ćemo još jedan put ponovo imati to? Tu leži moj otac na toj ploči. Zapravo leži u zemlji. Da li ću morati ja i moji unuci, moji svi prijatelji končije? Mi to ne možemo dozvoliti po cijenu života.
Oni nam kažu nam da smo mi sa Kosovo. I spominje Kosovo. A šta Srbija daje Kosovo? Daje sva prava, a on nam ne daje ništa. I sad kad se kritikuju Slobodana Miloševića i okolo ljude, pametne ljude koji vode zrelu i pametnu politiku. Tako je. Jedno, a drugo napad Jugoslavensku narodnu armiju za koju smo mi svi spremni, sutra ćemo se obući večeras, ako treba i sad ovog časa. Obućemo, smećemo petokraku i Titovku na glavu. I borit ćemo se svoje prava.
The mood of paranoia spreads to the parliament at Zagreb. A representative of the Serb minority is speaking.
Srpski narod u Hrvatskoj je čestit, pošten, radan, štedljiv narod, narod koji nikad nije dozvolio da ga ugnjetava. Hvala. To je pametan narod koji je ustao da zaštiti svoje ljudsko dostojanstvo, svoju djecu, svoj integritet građanina. To su ljudi koji se nikad neće složiti sa ustašoidnim režimom u kojem trenutno žive. Oni će se...
Ja moram upozoriti Tanjku, molim vas lijepo, ja vas upozoravam da nemate pravo uvrijeđati hrvatsku vladu. Imate pravo govoriti, nemate pravo vrijeđati. Nazivati hrvatsku vlast ustašoidnom je uvreda.
The parliamentary speaker intervenes and tries to calm down the Croat deputies.
Molim vas lijepo, gospodo, dozvolite Tanjgi da govori, a ukoliko bude vrijeđao hrvatsku vlast i Hrvatski sabor, ja ću mu oduzeti riječ.
Hvala.
Izvolite nastaviti.
Pošto su prethodnici, pošto...
Ispričaj se.
The ghosts of the past are looming dangerously. Out of the public eye, arms are being supplied from official storehouses to Serb civilians, with the tacit approval of the Federal Army. Militias are being formed, Serb and Croat. The Croatian and Slovenian governments reject the legitimacy of the Federal Army and strengthen their police and civil defense forces while preparing to establish their own armed forces. In January 1991, Belgrade Television broadcasts this film prepared by military intelligence services, which accuses the Croatians of illegally importing arms. We see the Croatian defense minister and hear what is allegedly a conversation in which he was involved 3 months earlier.
Organizuje 2-3 čovjeka za likvidaciju najopasnijih. Dobro, fizičku likvidaciju. Ovo je Ustan, Kurijer, pojavi se na vratima dom i stiđe do ovdje se granicama. Oni traže policija da ona otvrde stoji. Stiđe se granicama dole, ide se kod drugog i onda to istovremeno. Koji su najopasniji mogu biti ubijeni na sa vratima. Nije u pitanju niti žena, niti djeca, ništa, to se ne pita.
Svaki zna jedan, niko ne vidio. Prezident je bio ovakav. Pošto je bila kolona na našoj granici kolona bila. Da. Onda je otišao ovaj ministar koji niko ne pozna. Da. Sa diplomatskim pasošima. Da. Dao diplomatske pasoše, oni su otvorili rampu suprotno. Da. I mi smo prošišali, niko nas nije vidio, osim tog ambasadora.
A concealed camera showed the general talking to 2 men said to be arms traffickers. General Spagel was called before a military tribunal in Belgrade, but the Croatian government dismissed all accusations and called it a provocation. The United States and Hungary accused of providing arms, issue denials.
Mi imamo snage da se organizujemo, suprotstavimo. Jugoslovenska narodna armija mora istrajati na izvršenju naredbi predsjedništva. Jugoslovenska narodna armija je jedina kohezijona snaga koja je u ovom trenutku sposobna i pozvana da izvrši svoje ustavne obaveze.
The Federal Army sends in tanks to Knin to restore law and order. At the same time, the federal presidency calls on the militias to disarm. In Zagreb, Tuđman speaks of a plot aimed at causing chaos and overthrowing democracy.
Događaji koji su se zbili danas u 3 općine, u Benkovcu, Kninu i Gračacu, nisu nas iznenadili. Mi smo znali za scenarij koji je pripremao metež u Hrvatskoj. Metež koji ide za tim da se obori demokratska vlast u Hrvatskoj, a potom i u Sloveniji.
In Belgrade, on Republic Square, Drasković, the Serb opposition nationalist leader, demands access to television and the resignation of the current leaders. He accuses them of dragging Serbia into civil war. Young people are there in force to express their discontent and their anger at 10 years of economic crisis. The demonstration rapidly degenerates. By nightfall, the tanks have taken over Belgrade. Drasković is arrested. He is released 5 days later. Under pressure from demonstrators, the television management resigns. Borislav Jović, the Serb federal president, fails to impose a state of emergency.
Obaveštavam javnost da nisam u stanju da budem saučesnik u takvim odlukama koje doprinose raspadu zemlje sa mogućim katastrofalnim posljedicama za naše građane i narode. Odlučio sam stoga da podnesem ostavku na dužnost, verujući da je to najpoštenije i u skladu sa mojom savješću.
It is the turn of Croatia's Mesić to succeed Jović. The Serbians, the representatives of Vojvodina and Kosovo, and the Montenegrins oppose his succession. At the end of March, the presidents of the 6 republics begin a series of meetings to try to resolve the crisis. The federal state is in deadlock. Meanwhile, in Croatia, one incident follows another. At Plitvice, Vukovar, Split. In Slovenia, there are first clashes between Federal Army and Slovene units. At Maribor, the inhabitants encircle the barracks and prevent the Federal Army tanks from leaving. Somewhere along a road near to the Slovenian border, a young couple has recognized federal troops hidden in an ambulance who are trying to break the blockade.
tukaj se ne odmaknemo. Potem pa se obrnite nazaj.
Gremo k nas.
Ja, vaših pa tam ni. Vaši so šli nazaj, vaši so šli nazaj, prosim, da tudi vi greste nazaj. Ker tukaj ne gremo. Tu malce lahko greste zvratno, ali pa na gor na mostu, vas bo pozivno držalo, pa se obrnite.
This is Slovenia, and no one is getting through. Elsewhere in Slovenia, an unarmed crowd brings an armored vehicle to a halt. You see the man who is attempting to climb onto the armored vehicle. He will be the first victim of the coming war. June 25th, 1991, Zagreb, the Croatian parliament. All the deputies are ringed round Franjo Tuđman and Stipe Mesić. They are celebrating Croatian independence. The power of the past has overcome the threats of the Serbians and the appeals of the European community and the United States. June 26, 1991, Ljubljana. Milan Kučan inaugurates the celebrations of Slovenia's independence.
Nikomor nismo nikoli delali sile. Zavračamo nasilje vseh oblik in namenov, v razmerjih med ljudmi, med narodi in njihovimi državami. Demokracija, svoboda, spoštovanje človekovega dostojanstva in njegovih pravic, spoštovanje manjšin in doseljencev, odprtost in sodelovanje z drugimi. Tem vrednotam ostajamo zavezani za vselej. Silo kaže tisti, ki mu manjka argumentov in trezne presoje. Če je pristna njihova želja, da ostanemo skupaj, potem bolj nesrečne stvari, kot je orožje, niso mogli izbrati. Nocoj so dovoljene sanje. Jutri je nov dan.
A few hours later, the Federal Army enters Slovenia, and the war has begun.
Another former communist state trying desperately to hold itself together in 1991 was Yugoslavia. Slovenia was the first to try to break away from the country. Lightly armed Slovene militia put up fierce resistance to units of the Yugoslav army who were trying to clear away roadblocks and establish some kind of control. In the towns and cities, the violent reaction of the army shocked local inhabitants and did much to create an atmosphere of crisis and determination. Before the end of the year, Slovenia had established itself as an independent state and was soon followed by neighbouring Croatia, but only after fierce and bitter fighting. At length,
of August on 4.
You're watching Channel 4. Now with a look at key moments in the history of the Balkans, the second essential guide.
Sinoć kad se vraća isto plaha mama, prođo pokraj bašte staroga imama.
As an idea, it was beautiful, inspirational, and delusive. As a state, it was unique and eventually impossible. For more than 1,000 years, Serbia, Croatia and Bosnia had sat uneasily on a fault line, which erupted every time one of the great powers felt like expanding. Now the First World War had extinguished the European empires, and on top of the fault line they built a nation-state called the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes. And there was already something to fight about. Whose nation was it anyway? Many Croats, Slovenes and Bosnians joined Serbs in the struggle for a common state. But for the first Prime Minister, Serb Nikola Pasic, federalism was an F word. Serbia wants to liberate and unite the Yugoslavs. Serbia does not want to drown in Yugoslavia, but to have Yugoslavia drown in her.
Nationalist politicians in Belgrade tended to regard Bosnia as an extension of Serbia. Croat politicians in Zagreb tended to regard certain parts of Bosnia as certainly parts of Croatia.
Although the Serbs and Croats never seemed to make up their mind if they were rivals or allies, the Muslims of Bosnia were in an enviable position.
The tragedy of Muslim population in Yugoslavia, historically speaking, has been that Muslims were always dragged between Croats and Serbs. Being in a kind of a national identity void, they tried to see themselves on one occasion as Croats, on the other as Serbs, trying probably to profit by the balance of power.
Take, for example, one Muslim family, the Spaho brothers. Mehmed, president of the Yugoslav Muslim organization, refused to be labeled Serb or Croat. Fahid, the religious head, declared himself Croat. Mustafa, an engineer, proclaimed himself a Serb. The Serbs were probably the best bet. Muslim votes helped pass a controversial new constitution which gave power to the center, which meant Serbs. Serbs also got the top jobs in the army and government. Most Croats weren't overjoyed at this, and the rural working class found a leader in Stjepan Radic. You think it is enough to say that we Croats, Serbs and Slovenes are one people because we speak one language. Our peasant in general, and especially our Croat peasant, does not wish to hear one more thing about kings or emperors, nor about a state which you are imposing on him by force. Known as the Croat Gandhi, Radic was a thorn in the flesh to the ruling Serb Radical Party, and in this land of the assassin's bullet, he met a predictable end.
Mr. Stjepan Radic was shot last night in Yugoslavia's National Assembly. His body riddled with bullets fired from the rostrum by the radical deputy Punisa Racic. 2 other Croatian deputies were killed outright and 2 others wounded.
Into the turmoil which followed Radic's death stepped Prince Alexander, descendant of the warrior princes who, centuries before, had helped Serbia revolt against the Turks. With the army's support in 1929, he proclaimed his personal